Hey, Teddy K here for Best Buy Plugin, and in this video review we take a look at the Samsung Galaxy A50, one of the newest mid-range phones from Samsung that tries to punch above its weight. The Galaxy A50 is in the middle of a slew of mid-range devices, a trio of mid-range devices that Samsung has released, and it hits a sweet spot in a lot of different ways. Not just the fact that it's in the middle of these three phones, but also that it kind of offers a lot of the things you might want or expect in a phone, especially for a mid-range device. That being said, there are some caveats that you have to also accept if you're going to go this route. So taking a look at the specs, you'll see that there's a large screen here, there's some storage, even expandable storage to work with, a decent amount of RAM, a decent processor, large battery, and a decent size as well. Yes, there is a notch on the screen, but it's not that bad, and I've never really been a guy that's been that bothered by a notch personally, but hey, if you are, know that this one's not that, it's not that dramatic like it is on some other devices. On top of that, I think it's an easy device to kind of hold. It's lightweight. It's not made of glass, even though it kind of looks like it is. It's the 3D glass stick that Samsung uses on some of their phones as well. They've introduced that previously. And there's a headphone jack. So if you want to listen to music the old-fashioned way, you can do that too. The screen's pretty vibrant as well, and the performance is very nice too. Really, I know only really encountered maybe some lag when it came to multitasking with a lot of different apps at the same time. But for the most part, as far as a daily driver, where just a moderate usage of different things, social media, email, texting, calls, browsing, whatever, even a little bit of casual gaming, I had no real problem, and I had plenty of battery left over to keep going. So I think from that standpoint, the phone works in a lot of good ways. The camera, though, is one of those things that I found really interesting because it's a 25 megapixel sensor, and I think you may look at that and say, okay, this is, well, 25 megapixels, that's a lot. It's got to be a good camera, right? Well, the megapixels don't make a camera great, and that I think is exemplified here because 25 megapixels, that means the pixels are smaller. So the pixels on the sensor are smaller, and that means that low light shooting is going to be a little bit more challenging. So if you shoot at night or you shoot in low light, you'll find that the phone kind of overexposes or underexposes depending on how much lighting you have to work with. The photos they might turn out a little noisy, they might turn out a little, I don't know, just dull. There may not be a lot of life to the shot if as far as color or contrast. So there's some trade-offs there, despite the fact that there's a wide aperture. Now there's pro mode. So a lot of Samsung's features and modes are available on this phone, like as you would see on the S10 line. The problem is that not all the features within those modes are available. So for example, if you've seen Instagram mode on the S10, you don't have that here. Night mode, same thing. Samsung has not updated the phone to include it. I don't even know if they will. And also with Pro Mode, where you could control ISO and shutter, among other features on the S10, you can only control ISO and white balance. You can't even control shutter speed, which I think is a big omission, especially when you're trying to compose a shot in low light, where you're trying to minimize the amount of noise that creeps in. So as a result, photos turn out decently. I think they turn out well for a mid-range phone, but they're not going to be quite as varied as they would be on a flagship device. You might expect that, but at the same time, it's just something to keep in mind that even though the camera's going to look familiar, especially if you're coming from a Samsung device, it's not necessarily going to shoot the same way despite the megapixel count. One of the standout features for sure is the battery life. The battery life was excellent. In my usage with this phone, I was able to go over a day easily on moderate usage, and it didn't take that long to recharge it either. So from that standpoint, if you're looking for a workhorse, something that's going to last a long time, especially given that you're probably using it with a mixed usage, you're not really going to have a problem there, and I certainly didn't. So from that standpoint, I would say probably the battery life is maybe one of its strongest features by far. So to compare to the A20 and A70, the A20 is the affordable model. It's very different than the other two. The A50 and A70 have more similarities. The A70 is a little bit more advanced in terms of the specs and features. You would probably have to decide between those two in terms of which one you like more. They look very similar, and the design is almost identical, really, just that the A70 is a little bit bigger. So it really just comes down to what I think you feel you're more comfortable with. But for the A50, it's a solid phone, and it's solidly in the mid-range, and it functions really, really well for a phone of that caliber. It's not going to be the S10. It's not supposed to be the S10. But if you're looking for a Samsung device that at least is a step below that, but still functions well, the A50 is that. And that's my review of the Samsung Galaxy A50 for Best Buy Plugin. I'm Teddy K. Thanks for watching.